Today I'm chatting with Celia Kibler, a family empowerment coach, a mum of 5 and an author of Raising Happy Toddlers. She's helped thousands of parents feel more confident and calm during the wild toddler years, and I am so glad she is here. So thank you for joining us today, Celia.
Thank you for having me, Paris. I'm excited to be here with you.
Lovely. Start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and how you came to writing the book.
Well, I am a mom, like you mentioned, of 5 kids. I'm a grandma to 9 kids.
I mean, I take my hat off to that to start with. 5 children.
And
I'm drowning with 3, so...
I didn't give birth to all of them. So good news, I only birthed 2 of them, and I got 3 through marriage. But I have been successfully parenting this blended family for over 30 years. And I've been a real live mom for over 43 years because my daughter is about to turn 43. Hard to believe. And I have always been focused on the health and wellness of children. I started a kids fitness business back in '87, and going through that and the decades of having those programs, I really saw parenting change from decade to decade to decade. And parents would naturally come and ask me, because when you have a teacher of a class, you ask them for help when dealing with their toddlers, and our classes are very toddler focused. So I started doing parent coaching and help professionally. And that led into me writing a book because I got really tired of people saying, why don't kids come with a manual? Why don't kids come with a manual? So I was like, well, let me write the manual so that you have a manual to refer to with your children. And pretty much, I know you've read it, Karis, pretty much everything is covered in this book. You can literally keep it on your shelf like your dishwasher. Okay, what happens when this breaks? Let me look it up. And there's a chapter about it, giving you successful, complementary, respectful, constructive solutions to whatever is going on with that child at that time.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's how I got to writing the book. It's available in English and Spanish. So if you prefer a language, and it's, along with my 3 children's books, it's there to help you and to make your parenting life that much easier with a lot less struggles.
Absolutely. So start off by telling us a little bit about the science then behind what's actually going on in a toddler's brain when they're tantruming and when they're growing up, and what sort of realistic expectations of these years.
Well, thank you for that question, Karis, because that's like key in getting it. It is very important that our human brains, that you realize that these brains do not fully develop for 25 years. 25 years.
I was blown away when I found that out.
Yeah. And usually it's one of those things that going, oh, well, that explains a lot. It's like, boing, 25 years. So when you're looking at your 2-year-old, they have 23 more years of brain development. So if you're looking at this child thinking, oh, it's a little adult and it should reply to me like a little adult, it's not a little adult. It's a different type of human because it doesn't have the wisdom you have, and it doesn't have the parts of the brain you have. So it can't answer you or reply to you like an adult. It's not just difficult, it's impossible. And once you realize that, you start understanding what your child understands compared to what you understand.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely key, isn't it? Is recognizing that they are not going to be able to respond. It's not a choice. They're not trying to be difficult or to manipulate you. It is literally a matter of development of the brain that we are waiting on, that, if it's not developing until they're 25, we really have to manage our expectations.
Exactly. And so many people think, oh, they're doing that to just get at me. They don't even have the ability to do that, to make you mad. That's not even part of their brain. They're doing it in spite of me. I know it. No, they're doing it because, first of all, half the things they're doing is because they've only been on this planet for a very short amount of time, and they are super curious, and everything that's in their path, they want to touch, they want to smell, they want to taste, they want to throw, they want to drop, so if you don't want them to touch something, you could either spend your entire life saying no, 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 no. Or you could simply move it so
Mm-hmm.
that you set them up more for success and less for failure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tantrums, obviously, this is the big thing that everyone thinks of when we think of toddlers. And we all have that fear of them happening out in public, more because of our own fear of judgment, I guess. Have you got any advice then for people on how to handle them and what actually is going on in these moments for the toddler?
Well, let's understand why a tantrum happens. A tantrum happens because we are born with like almost all of our emotions, except for like compassion. Compassion is learned. But when we get disappointed or we get mad or we get upset at something, we as adults hopefully can acknowledge that feeling, process it, and have a productive response to it. A child of toddler age doesn't have that ability. So they get upset at something, they get disappointed, someone says no, someone tries to get them away from something they want to do, and then their subconscious brain takes over and offers the reaction to that feeling, that emotion. And that reaction may look like biting, throwing, kicking, a tantrum, screaming, pinching, could look like anything because it's just spitting out a response. Our
Mm-hmm.
job as a parent is to not just go, don't do that, but to teach them another way to handle that emotion. And with tantrums, understand that they start, like I said, because it's an automatic reaction of their subconscious brain. It continues for one reason and one reason only, and this is what's key. They continue because they work. So if you give into a tantrum, if your child has a tantrum, if you're in the store and they want a toy and you say, no, honey, you can't have that toy. We're here to get Tommy a birthday present. We'll come back on another day when it's your birthday or a holiday and we'll get a toy. Or like I do with my grandkids, I'll be like, let's take a picture of it. I put it on your list and then we can look at it later when people are asking me what you want.
Yeah.
And then they start crying because you said no.
Mm-hmm.
Do not hand them that toy and say, okay, just stop crying. Here's the toy. Because now you just taught that child, okay, I don't get my way. I throw a fit. Mommy gives it to me or daddy gives it to me. And now life is good again. You don't want to teach them that. You want to teach them that sometimes in life, things don't go your way. And that's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's disappointment in life. Everything cannot go their way and everything cannot make them happy the moment they need it. That's what spoils children, not love.
Mm-hmm. So we can be empathetic, can't we, while still holding the boundary? So we can say something along the lines of, gosh, I understand how much you want that toy. Let's put it on the list then, and we can show everyone at Christmas what it is that you would like. But unfortunately, you're not going to have the toy now. And they are going to kick and scream, aren't they? But if we hold that boundary, then next time we go into the shop, they will start to understand that process rather than using it as a defensive second, third, fourth time and feeling like we're out of control in the situation.
And that's the key is when you stay consistent, that's what teaches them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just walk in the store and get something. If you buy something for your child, every time you walk into a store, they are going to expect something to be bought for them every time. I'll give you an example of how good the camera idea works. So I would always do that with my grandkids. If I wasn't going to buy them something, I'd take a picture and tell them. And that way, when you take the picture, you acknowledge that they want it. You're not like just blowing it off. You're like, okay, I get that you want this. Let's take a picture and then we'll have it on record. One day, my grandson, who his big sister always wants to go shopping. At the time he was 5, he never wanted to go shopping. One day he says to me while I'm watching him, Gammon, they call me Gammon, let's go to Target. And I'm like, you want to go to Target? Why do you want to go to Target? He goes, so I can take pictures of things I like for my list. And I'm like, my job here is done. I called my daughter. I'm like, you can thank me later. He wants to go to the store and take pictures. So they do like learn that. And it's a way of saying, I hear you. You're
Hmm.
not invisible. I understand you want that, but
Hmm.
right now we can't get it. But there's another way that you can acknowledge their wants and needs.
Yeah, rather than saying no, because let's be honest, toddlers, all they hear is no, and it can become a bit overwhelming and a bit exhausting, can't it? So it's finding another way to say no in a much more gentle manner.
Absolutely. You know, Karis, they did a study and it was of toddler homes, and they discovered that children of toddler age are told no on average 400 times a day. They are told yes on average 35 times a day. Wouldn't it be nice to switch that around? And I don't mean switch that around by giving in. I
Hmm.
mean, switch that around by setting them up for success, by having your home a home where they can play in, and everything they look at or see, they're not told no for. You know,
Yeah.
a home like the
They can
camera.
explore their natural curiosity that they are supposed to have.
Yes, and that's super good for their brain. You want them to be curious. And you
Yeah.
want them to go outside. You want them to run. You want them to pick up sticks and bugs and all kinds of little things and be curious and not be afraid and not
Hmm.
be worried of what somebody thinks, because they're constantly being yelled at, and they start forming this belief in their brain that, oh, everything I do is wrong, nothing I do is right, and I'm always being judged, so I'm just not even going to say anything because someone's going to,
Hmm.
basically tell me what they think of me.
Which is so key because, we really want to be teaching our children not to be scared of failure, don't we? We want to be teaching them that they can learn from their mistakes. So we need to keep that space of curiosity and learning open for them. And when we're constantly closing it down with the word no, or making them feel like they can't do things or that they've done something wrong, it's very hard for that natural curiosity to stay open.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that you can't say no. I'm not
Hmm.
removing the word no. That's important that they learn no,
Yeah.
especially if, when they get older and they want to have that boundary with something that doesn't feel safe. But what I am saying is don't make every situation be a no.
Yeah. Manage the environment.
Right. Allow them to explore, allow them to be curiosity, allow them to learn. Curiosity leads to learning. And if, we're talking about success and making mistakes and failures, that's not the opposite of success. That's on the road to success. The opposite
Hmm.
of success is giving up. That's it. You give up, no success. But
Hmm.
something goes wrong, that's just life. And
Yeah.
now you make light of it enough that you can say, okay, so that didn't work out so well. Let's look at what we did. What can we do differently to have a different outcome?
Love that. Absolutely love that. So I guess this kind of leads into my next question, really, which is a lot of our reaction of how we respond to stuff is really more about us, isn't it, than about what the child did. So how do you begin to teach the parents to regulate their own emotions and their own responses and triggers towards the child's behavior so that we can actually respond rather than react?
And that is a wonderful question. So you can spend your parenting journey reacting emotionally to everything there is. You can be screaming. I am on a personal journey to stop over 10 million parents or more. I think I've already helped 10 million parents, to help millions of parents stop yelling at their kids. Because why? When you're yelling and screaming and throwing things and calling names and whatever's happening to you as an adult, you are throwing a tantrum. It is
Yeah.
no different than your toddler throwing a tantrum. You are throwing an uncontrolled reaction to an emotion. That's all a
Hmm.
tantrum is.
And we don't see that though as adults, do we? That's the bizarre thing. We all do that and we have our moments, but we kind of accept that with other adults. But when a child does it, we're instantly disgruntled at their bad behavior.
Right. And yet we're old enough that we should know how to respond to, something that's disappointing us and making us
Hmm.
upset and triggering us. The way you conquer it is that you make sure you're not parenting your family by the seat of your seat of your pants, which might be influenced by your parents, but you have a framework in place. You have a system. We have systems for everything. Everything
Hmm.
has a system. You learn your career. You learned how to do that. You went to school. We learned how to read a book. We learned how to play football. We learned how to do baseball. We learned how to be a plumber, an electrician, a doctor, driving a car, going to the bathroom. We all learned how to do that. But strangely enough, parenting, the single most responsibility we have on this planet, raising another adult, we feel like we don't have to learn how to do it. What I know what I'm doing.
Mental, isn't it? I'm with you on that. It is mental that we don't seem to think that we should learn or be educated. We don't learn it at school. We're just doing it unconsciously from the blueprint that was provided to us from childhood. We're not stopping to be consciously aware as to what those beliefs and values we want our children to grow up with and how we actually want to parent. And that is crazy when you think about it.
It is, isn't it crazy? And it's like, I'll say a lot that, we all expect to recover from our childhoods. Wouldn't it be nice to start raising generations of humans that don't have to recover?
Yes.
I mean, imagine what happens, in my nonprofit. I work to control the violence and rage of the world. It has to start with parenting. If you're parenting violently and aggressively, you're raising more violent, aggressive children. But if we could raise generations of kids that didn't have to recover from their childhood because their parents had a system in place, they were operating proactively instead of emotionally reactive, it would be a big difference. Would everything be solved? Of course not. I mean, I'm not thinking we could solve it all, but we would make a huge impact on how generations of adults would be raised.
So just give me some examples of the systems you're talking about then. What about children? I mean, toddlers are renowned for hitting and throwing. Give us some kind of effective strategies instead of fear-based punishments that we could put into place to manage this type of behavior.
So you need, parenting's like a parenting puzzle. And it has all these pieces that fit together with other pieces. And without some of these pieces, the other pieces aren't going to work. Yeah. So if you're missing pieces out of the puzzle, things aren't going to go right. Or if you're just trying something you heard on the internet and you're not consistent with it, it also is not going to work. Yeah, I had somebody say to me, I tried that routine thing. They called it a thing. It didn't work. Routines are not a thing. They're a necessity. If you want your children to be more independent, more empowered, more cooperative, set up routines. They need a morning routine. They need an evening routine, and even an after school routine if they're coming to you after school. They need these things. It helps them feel safe, secure, loved. Kids that live in chaos and have no structure to their day are chaotic, wild children. Why?
Yeah.
No structure, no calm. But in answer to your question, there has to be pieces of this puzzle. There has to be calm communication. There has to be cooperation. There has to be limits, boundaries, consequences. There has to be consequences. Like you said, punishment doesn't teach, consequences teach. And I'll even help your listeners with the formula that I give my clients. So consequences is a 3-part formula. How do you create it? And I'll give you, as an example, the most successful, commonly known consequence that we adults receive, and that is the speeding ticket. So we go into driving down a road, and it has a speed limit, and we make a conscious decision to speed in full knowledge that we might get a ticket. So one day we speed and a policeman pulls us over, and what does he give us? A ticket. So now this consequence directly relates to the crime. So the first R is it needs to relate. So speeding ticket relates. Okay. Yep. Second thing about a consequence, it needs to be reasonable. So this policeman does not take your keys away. He does not tow your car away. In fact, he lets you get in, start the car, and drive right away, right after you got this ticket, expecting you to follow the law this time. So now this consequence is relatable to the crime, and it is reasonable. Your child doesn't listen to you about turning off the iPad. You don't throw $1,000 iPad in the garbage because you're so angry. that just doesn't even make logical sense. You can take it away, but they'll be like, I'm throwing it out. Why would you throw it out? If you don't want them
And I
to have
guess
it,
that's when parents then aren't consistent, aren't they? Because
right,
then you're not really going to follow through on that.
And that right there is the third R. It has to be repeatable. So in a speeding ticket, what you get is a speeding ticket. Every time you speed, if you get pulled over, you get a speeding ticket. Every single time. Speeding ticket, speeding ticket, speeding ticket. You know that's the consequence. It relates to the crime. It's reasonable and it's repeatable. That's how you set up a consequence. So
I
if
love
your
that.
child, say your child, I said a tablet. They have a tablet. And this relates to any kid, any age. Say your child, say an older child's on a video. Of course, we're talking about toddlers. Does the same thing. Say your older child's on the video game and you go in there and you're like, honey, can you stop playing? Come to dinner. Dinner will be ready in 5 minutes. And you go back to the kitchen. You expect this wonderfully obedient child to come. And then you're like, oh, 5 minutes, not here. Shocking. So most parents will go up and ask again and ask again and ask again. And then they scream and rage. And finally, that game is turned off and that kid's in the kitchen crying.
Yeah.
When you should have done this. Because in that scenario, as I teach parents not to yell, it's not the yelling that's the problem. It's the asking over and over. And stop asking your kids. Ask them once. That's it. That's all they get. One time. Turn off this video game. Come to the kitchen. We're having dinner in 5 minutes. You go back up there. The video game's still on. Guess what? There's a button. You can turn it off. You turn off the video game. If they get mad, you can take the whole thing. It's very portable. Now they've lost the video game for 24 hours. Why 24 hours? Because then you're giving them another opportunity, if the same situation occurs, to learn to listen. So if the next day the same scenario happens, they lose that video game again for 24 hours. After a second or third time, they're going to figure out, Mom's serious about this. She said, turn off the game. I better just go to dinner and then I'll have my game.
Yeah. So we're really focusing, I guess, on what exactly we want to teach them and how we're going to teach that, aren't we? Rather than focusing on a punishment, that's sort of fitting to the crime. I feel like, old school thought used to be a lot more that children should be punished, whereas we really need to remember that discipline actually really means to teach, doesn't it? And it's our job to be thinking about what we want to teach them and what we want to learn from the experience.
Absolutely. I was just talking to a parent and they were like, yeah, every time I did this, my parents would spank me. And I'm like, so what did that teach you? And they were like, well, actually nothing, because I kept doing it. Exactly. So they kept doing the behavior over and over. They kept getting spanking, behavior, spanking, forever. It didn't teach anything.
It's not teaching any skills.
Right. When you have a constructive consequence, there should be a consequence. Life has consequences. They don't just get off scot-free for not listening to you.
Yeah.
There should be a consequence, but it should be one that's structured to teach them that the next time this situation occurs, they make a better choice.
Love that. So bringing it back to toddlers, why are toddlers renowned for pushing boundaries? Why is it particularly that phase that they enjoy pushing boundaries so much? Well, that's how it feels.
I'll give you a clue, because my children are in their 30s and 40s, and I raised them through toddler, teenhood, all the stages and phases of life. They always push boundaries. So don't think that just, I got through this toddler thing, no more boundary pushing. There'll be a teenager. Hey, there's a party tonight, Mom. I want to be home at 10:30, not 10. Can that happen?
Yeah.
But they push things because their brain is growing. So in this little, very basic brain, they're learning more and more. They're learning more things from you. They're learning more things from possible siblings or friends. They're learning more things. And with the growth of a brain and the knowledge they're learning, they are now stronger, more capable. They'll be developing skills. And they're like, well, let me do this myself. I can just do this. I can just climb up this couch and jump off the back. Might not be my best plan, but I don't know that yet because I'm just a kid and I haven't done it yet. So let me do it, break my legs, and then find out not my best plan. But
Yeah.
it is mostly because they're learning so much and their skills are growing so fast and they're learning things so fast that they want to try them out and they're able to do things they weren't able to do before. So it's really important as parents to recognize that the earlier you give them the opportunity to be big, which is what all kids want to be. All kids just want to be big. Once you figure that out and you let them participate in life, not just play, you are giving them knowledge and skills so that they're naturally lifting boundaries and expanding boundaries with you at the helm. So if they're like, everybody heard you have to spend time to connect with your children. You have to have that one-on-one time.
Yeah.
Well, that one-on-one time, people think I need to sit down and play with their toys together. Well, it shouldn't just be I need to sit down and play with your toys. It should be our one-on-one time is, you know what, guys? Thursday night's laundry night. We're all doing it. Everybody's folding clothes. 2-year-old can certainly fold some washcloths and some underwear, and who cares what it looks like when it's done? We care the act of doing. You know what? It's time to fix dinner. Oh, I'm so tired. I have so much dinner. Go play. Don't do that. Because now you've just sent an indirect message to your child, even your toddler, that your job is to play. My job is to work. Nobody wants that. No, you want their job to be working so that when they're 8 years old, they can cook you dinner and you can go play. So start now. When they're 2, they can sit in a little chair. You can give them like a pumpkin knife. They can cut up bananas. They can make a little bowl of banana. I mean, there's a lot a little kid can do, and they will love doing it because they're now being included in grown-up stuff, in big stuff, and they're being allowed to feel big and feel more confident. And that keeps some of these high-risk things under control because they're doing more high-risk things and they're doing more expansion of what was a boundary before.
I think that's a really key point actually as well that you made at the start there, that we always think that building connection is through play, because we hear a lot about that, but you can actually build connection through those everyday tasks like doing dinner together or even doing the laundry together. It's spending that time, it's building that connection, it's just showing up and being present no matter what the task, but you could also be teaching a skill at the same time. And I think that's really quite good for busy parents to know, because otherwise sometimes it can just feel like an added thing to add to the list to build some connection, do some one-on-one time. And sometimes it's overwhelming, all the things you've got to do anyway, but to think actually you can make everyday life a bit more fun, a bit more playful, but just do it together is actually, that's just really good to hear, to be honest.
Yeah, thank you, Karis. And it's true. It's like, most parents get home from work and they're like, oh, now I have to think about dinner. I have to figure out what I'm making. Kids got to take a bath, got to get them PJs, got to get them bed, blah, blah, blah. The whole craziness begins and you feel overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But if you're like, if you set up a routine that, okay, I get home from work, I'm going to run up, I'm going to change my clothes, I'm going to relax for, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever you need, you take it, preferably not 4 hours, and come back downstairs and then go, okay, guys, let's get dinner started. And you can even sit with your kids and pick out dinner the night before. Take them shopping. I have a great meal planning game where everybody plays and plans meals together because I personally, as a parent, I could not stand planning meals. I was like, oh, I got to plan meals. I hate planning meals.
I'm with you
so
on
I
that.
made up a fun game that's easily of planning meals. And everybody contributes. And then you make a shopping list, take your kids shopping. There's a lot to be learned in the food store. And then have them help make, and you can buy them a little like chef hat. Don't they have little chef hats for kids? I'm sure they do. How fun would that be? And that they can set the table, they can serve, they can, give them all kinds of fun stuff. They will love it. And it's also play because it's fun. Kids do learn the most through just playing. They don't need a screen in front to teach them numbers. Think how much math is involved in cooking, reading a recipe.
Yeah.
Counting, okay, there's 4 people in this family. I need 4 napkins. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, you're so right. Looking at those skills that can be learned in everyday life. I love that. I just want to touch on another point as well. Is it normal then for toddlers to start telling lies? Because I think you can sometimes start to see this come through, can't you? Maybe more at the age of sort of 3 or something like that, where they might blame a sibling or, the dog made the mess, not them. They don't want to hold responsibility for it. How do we begin to encourage the honesty without leaving them feeling ashamed of what they've done?
Okay. So understand storytelling, which is what a lie is. Storytelling is basically something they have been taught to do from the moment they were born. We read stories. Right. We play with toys. We have little stories that we learn. So they learn to storytell. There is not a distinction because they don't know the difference between fantasy and reality until they're about 5 or 6. Some start forming it a little earlier, but usually average around 5 is when kids know the difference between fantasy and reality. But so they'll tell a story and they'll hear a story, and to them, everything's real. Like, have you ever gone to a birthday party where Mickey Mouse came and they were freaked out over a 5-foot Mickey Mouse? Because Mickey Mouse is this big. Mickey Mouse is not 5 feet tall. And so storytelling is a part of their life. Now, what happens is as they get older and older, they learn through your response to things they do wrong. And if you're a yeller, it's going to come in even stronger, that they don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to get yelled at. So they learn, well, the way I don't get yelled at is I make up that somebody else did it so somebody else can get yelled at, not me. That's the number one reason kids don't tell the truth, is because they don't want to get in trouble. Here's another thing happens with children is, say they go visit their grandma and you just told your mom, don't take them for ice cream. I'm telling you, they've had so much sugar this week. It's been like crazy. It was Halloween. They just ate like a bucket of sugar. Please don't take them for ice cream. I know you usually do that. Do something else. Go to the park. And what does grandma do? She takes them for ice cream. Then she tells your child, don't tell mom we did this. I mean, perfectly innocent. And I know she means nothing by it. I'm not accusing, being a grandma myself, I'm not accusing grandmas of doing evil things. It is perfectly innocent. And they say, don't tell mom we went for ice cream.
Yeah.
What that did is it just gave your child permission to lie. Because now when you go, so what did you and grandma do today? They're not going to say they went for ice cream. They're going to make up a story. And they're going to tell something that didn't happen. And they're not going to tell what did happen because they just got told not to tell what did happen. So that also gives children permission to lie. Sometimes parents do it themselves. Parents will say, oh, don't tell dad we did this. When dad gets home, when mom gets home, whatever, don't tell. And all these things are teaching children to lie because you're teaching them to make up a story based around what you just told them not to do. Now, tattling and telling, that's two different things.
Yeah.
And it can be easily designated, is that the word? It can be easily explained to a child. Oh, designate is not the word. And that is that tattling and telling have two purposes. You want your children to tell you stuff. Mom, Eric just fell down the hill and he scraped his knee. Okay, I'm coming to help.
Yeah.
So telling is asking for help.
Yes.
Tattling is specifically to get somebody in trouble. That is the specific definition of tattling. I'm going to tattle and that person's going to get in trouble and I'm going to be the champion of the day. And so they tattle, Eric just smacked me. Now, what they didn't tell you is that you also smacked Eric. But you just smacked me. So now go over there, mom, and get him in trouble. So you can even ask your child, as you're teaching them the difference between tattling and telling, you can say, are you telling me this because you need help? Or are you telling me this because you're trying to get someone in trouble?
And what do we do if that's what they're doing, if they're trying to get their sibling in trouble?
Well, if it's all good and there's no weapons or nobody's bleeding or, you're not worried that there's going to be true pain happening, let them figure it out themselves. There is a time when children and even siblings will, kind of argue That's when they learn how to resolve conflict. That's how they learn to problem solve. Now, if they tend to smack each other, punch each other in the face, you might want to like kind of monitor before it gets to that point. You don't want to allow bullying as they get older. Don't allow bullying interfere. But at the beginning, they have to learn conflict resolution, and they learn it naturally through their siblings or cousins, friends and family. But for you, also remember that if kids are playing together and all of a sudden they start fighting, they're usually fighting because they're sick of each other. So give them a break. If they're playing nice, say you're just on the phone call with somebody and they've been playing great for 20 minutes and then they start fighting and you hang up the phone and you go in there and like, what are you guys fighting about? And you start yelling at them. You just showed full attention to the negative part of that half hour, not the positive part. What you should have done is walked in there and said, guys, thank you so much. I had a great phone call. I really appreciate you guys playing so nice. Ignore that little spat because you already entered in and that probably stopped it. And then you can say, why don't we pick out a game and the three of us will play together for the next 10 minutes before I have to make another call. And that way you're showing attention to what they're doing right instead of what they're not doing right.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And that's really key, isn't it? It's very easy for us to constantly give them our focus and attention when they're doing something wrong, rather than remembering to notice those little things of what they do and sort of descriptive praising that for, you sat with your brother so nicely and you played so I could make my call. I really appreciate you giving me that time, so that they feel valued for what they have got right.
Absolutely. When I work with my clients, I always ask them to tell me what went right. And this one mom was so upset with her son. And she's like, I can't think of anything he did right. I'm like, nothing? You can't think of one thing that child did right? And she goes, tell you honestly, no. And I said, did he wake up on time? Yeah. Who woke him up? He woke him up. So he did that right. Did he get dressed? Yes. Did he eat breakfast? Yes. Did he go to school on time? Yes. I said, well, there's 4 things right there that child did right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is your child does a lot more right than not right. And the more you acknowledge and recognize and appreciate what they did right, the more right they will do. When they go to choose a behavior, they're going to choose one that makes you proud of them and not the one that they, get in trouble for.
So, right, I learned a few years ago, actually, about a thing called the Golden Book, which has been brilliant with my kids. And every night, the parenting coach at the time I was working with taught me to write in the book 5 things or a low 3, 5, 6, 7 things in the book, and descriptive praise what the boys had done correctly, each individually, and then read it to them at bedtime. So it might be that when you came home from school, you brought your school bag in from the car. When you ate dinner, you remembered to try some of the peas and corn tonight, or you took your plate over to the side. Real basic stuff. But it also reminded me as to what they were doing and what they were getting right from maybe where we were 6 months ago and the effort and progress they had made. And they loved it. And we still do it now. They love the Golden Book. They love to hear what they got right. And they feel good about themselves when they go to bed at night. And I think I have to remind myself that on the days when I almost feel like not writing the Golden Book because they've been hard work are the days that they need the Golden Book the most. And the days that the Golden Book has the most influence and impact on them, so that we kind of get out of that negative cycle and we have a better day the next day.
Right. And that's why consequences are so important. You don't take away what is so beneficial to the growth of a child. And that exercise is good for parents too. When you're feeling like I've done nothing right today, when you're feeling, oh, what a day this has been. Everything went wrong. Everything went wrong. And then you're like, people will tell you, make a list of what needs to be done so you have it for tomorrow morning. I tell my clients, make a list of what went right. So write down what went right so that you're like, oh yeah, I did get this done. And, I made it to that appointment I had. And, oh yeah, I scheduled my dentist appointment. I mean, I did those 5 things right, instead of always focusing on what goes wrong. And the more you encourage your children that way and each other, you and your partner, most relationships fall apart because somebody feels invisible. Somebody does not feel appreciated. And when you appreciate somebody for the effort they put in, whether it's your partner or it's your child, it makes a huge difference in your relationship. Huge.
Absolutely.
And your
Yeah.
relationship will last forever and ever and ever because you're both feeling appreciated and loved. And your kids, the same way. It will build the strength of a relationship for years to come.
Yeah, I love that. Celia, this has been an amazing podcast. I've absolutely loved chatting with you. I just want to sum up. Have you got any final words of advice for our listeners today? Because, I mean, I could just sit here and talk to you all day otherwise, because there's just so much insightful information. But yeah, any final words of advice for the listeners?
Thank you, first of all, Karis, for having me. I really appreciate it. And I hope, I hope that our listeners found help in all the things we talked about. Since we've already mentioned to recognize the positive and see the good that goes on with you and your family, I will reiterate that again. But I really want you to, now that you've listened to this podcast, and if you made notes, if you didn't, maybe listen again and make notes. But if you heard one thing that you're like, I'm going to start doing this. I'm going to start recognizing all the good my children do. I'm going to look around my house and make sure there are not things that I don't want my child to touch. I want to make sure those are put away so I can stop saying, don't touch that, don't touch that, don't touch that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is that you heard, please put it into action. Please decide, you know what, tonight, after whenever it is you hear this podcast today, okay, I'm doing this. As soon as those kids get home, we're going to sit down and I'm going to thank them for all the things they did, in the morning, in the evening, whatever it is. And maybe at night before we go to bed, I'm going to talk to them and start a little journal about all the things they did right that day. And I might add in all the things I did right that day too. And it can be a whole family journal that you can read again and again. So take one tip and put it into action. Just don't go, this was a great podcast. Take it to heart, start doing it, take action, and change the dynamic of your family.
Take action. What a great way to end it. Love it. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Celia. Lovely.
Thank you, Kira, so much for having me. I appreciate it.